Welcome to the space where creators have aligned a positive and intellectual collab of open minds. For sharing and learning from one another, it's a vibe. We do also podcast on the mic. Subscribe, educator spitting bars. I guess you didn't know I'm multifaceted and humble, checking off life goals. The classroom is my comfort zone where I plant and sow seeds of knowledge, compassion, empathy, and hope. Reading is the key to unlocking your potential. Countless benefits, including cognitive and mental. Regardless of the genre, books are highly influential. Go get yours, I'll get mine. Making strides, monumental. Come rock with me and get down to this new jam. Reaching out to my friends, I had a very simple plan. Educate the masses through books and life lessons. It's the grand slam. I'm out. Talanoa and welcome to the Reads with Russell podcast. Fam, I am so excited to introduce today's guest. He is a proud Samoan, born and raised in Aotearoa, New Zealand, now based in Sydney, Australia. He's a published author, an educator, a writer, a member of the Black Friars Theatre Company, and he is the founder and creative director of Satiu Studios, one of few Pasifika-led organizations in Australia that is dedicated to amplifying the voices and sharing the stories of Pasifika folks. It is my honor to welcome to the show Gabriel Faatau'uu-Satiu. Woohoo! How are you? Good morning.
Yeah,
good morning.
I'm good. Good morning. Thank you so much for that. That was a little bit uncomfortable to hear, but all good.
Before we get started, I do like to ask our guests to give a brief introduction.
Sure. Talanoa, malo lava le soifua ma mai le langi mama. My name is Gabriel Tuitonga. Faatau'uu-Satiu is my full name. Whenever I'm given the opportunity to introduce myself in any sort of like formal capacity, I always start with my full name to pay respects to the different people that I'm named after, but also to pay homage for all the different places that I come from. I am proudly of Sāmoan heritage, like you said. My mother hails from the village Mangiangi in Upolu, and my father's from Whangaloa in Tawhitoala. But I was born and raised in Puriro, Wellington in Aotearoa, New Zealand, and I currently reside here in Sydney, Australia. The land of the Darawal and Darug Nation is where I work and stay. So yeah.
Malo lava, Gabriel, thank you so much for honoring those who have come before you, honoring your family names, and obviously acknowledging the land where you are right now. So that was great. I didn't know where to start. To be honest, I have a whole list of things. I have Gabriel as an author, Gabriel as a screenwriter, a storyline writer, consultant, theatre critic, journalist, blogger, producer, director. Whoa. From P-Town.
From P-Town, yeah.
P-Town all the way to Sydney, Australia. I mean, where did it all start for you? Because I imagine, these different hats and skills and talents that you have to share with the world. It didn't, I mean, I'm imagining years of hard work, grind, to get to this point. So where did this creative, artistic, if I may say, journey begin for you?
I think it's hard to pinpoint an exact moment. I always loved reading and writing from a very young age, but it's something that I never took seriously. I was really lucky. I was thinking about this question, but I was really lucky that as I was growing up, my mum had a lot of books by Albert Wendt, just kind of lying around the house very casually. My sister would read them. I used to read them, but I was always fascinated that it was read, or that it was written by like a Samoan person. And so I started seeing a little bit of myself in those books. But I actually started with, I think it's screen that I really gravitated towards. Our family had, throughout the years, we evolved through very, those old school digital sort of cameras, video cameras, filming our White Sunday stuff. I used to make homemade videos of all our just reenacting movies, my favorite scenes, thinking that I was the director and the actor at the same time. But I do remember watching a Bollywood movie. I know that's a really like bizarre thing to say and think about, but there's a movie called Kuch Kuch Hota Hai, which is a essentially a love story about the Indian culture. But I remember being fascinated by all the bright colors, the food, the different layers of language, and I remember questioning, um, why isn't there anything for like Pacific people? But I could also see the parallels between us as Pasifika people with some of the stuff that the Indian culture was displaying. Like there was lots and lots of dancing. Um, the dynamics of the household, because in a traditional Indian family, it's sort of similar to us when we have, there's the parents and the children, but then you've got auntie and uncle somewhere, you've got the grandparents in the house, and it was the same for them too. And then seeing this big family gathering that was spread across, a set amount of days, with lots and lots of people. And I was like, this is what we are too. And I was like, why isn't there anything being created for us as well? And yeah, those are probably just the earliest memories of where my creative stuff really started for me.
In terms of like acting, did you also do that through White Sunday? Did you have that experience as well?
Yeah. I mean, there was the natural. I just think that we're born with sort of that natural talent. A little bit of it was that pressure from your parents to get it right. So there's obviously that aspect to it as well, but it's something that I actually really enjoyed doing. Like I remember in my youth days, just choreographing dances, always wanting to be the solo performer. Yeah, but those are things that we just that we're already doing, like growing
Right.
up. Yeah.
In terms of formal training, like how did you then actually get into like take that path into the creative performing arts world?
Yes, so I probably came late into the formal side of things. Like I was already kind of actively working in the industry as an actor. I just signed up to an agency. They would submit me to audition for certain things. If there was something that I was suitable for, I'd just perform in them. But I just remember being in that space and not. I don't know how to explain that. It's like I always felt like something was slightly missing. And I remember meeting other, creatives like myself who, talked about places that they studied and that. And I did attempt to study. It just got really hard. Because we as Pacific people too, there's that pressure to provide first. And I don't think arts or the arts, I should say, is seen as a viable sort of career. And so I worked for so long, worked in a non-art related job, but there are skills in those jobs that I feel like that I'm able to bring now, as a creative. But I did do some formal studies. I did a degree in creative arts. My major was in creative writing. I studied at the Manukau Institute of Technology, which is sort of like a TAFE. Everyone goes, "Oh, really? You want to do something like that?" But I remember when I applied, there were so many Pasifika lecturers who were teaching creative writing.
Wow.
And Albert Went was one of them. Like his name was there. I had people like Tusiata Avia. No, I had
Oh
some
my.
really good lecturers in my. Yeah, so I was like, of course I'm going to study and learn from like the OGs, from the best. I'm so happy that I did.
Wow.
Yeah.
That is amazing. That is so cool. I mean, I wanted to ask that question because, just this idea of like that formal training, like in terms of writing and, how has that impacted you? Like now, like when you have teachers like that and think about where you're at now in terms of your writing, whether it's a screenplay or whether it's a
Yeah.
script or even just, as an author, man, how great is it to have had an opportunity like that with such amazing playwrights and writers
Yeah.
to like
No, I was really lucky. It's funny looking back because I was like, they're just people.
mm,
but I remember looking up to them for a long time, and so seeing those names, I was like, of course I'm going to do this degree, which I finished.
Mm,
But I was in my late 20s when I did that. Yeah. But
yeah.
I was in a place in my life where, I was working full time, earning some pretty good money, but there was something that just said that wasn't enough for me. And I kind of had to stand up to my family and say, sorry guys, I'm just gonna like pursue this on the side. I feel like I've done what I can to provide, as your son, as a member of the family. Um, but now I need to look after me and what I want to do. And I know that's not easy for everybody,
Mm,
to go against what's expected of us. Yeah.
mm.
And then
You
after
know,
that, I did a master's. I did that more recently. I did that
oh,
while I was based here in Australia, but I did it through Unitec, who are based in Auckland. So I
mm.
did my entire master's degree on Zoom. I've never met my lecturers in person, which was
Oh,
really odd.
pandemic, right?
Yeah,
Oh, yo, congratulations on
thank you.
on doing your masters. Man, going back to study and do your masters and then reflecting on, your earlier studies, how much do you think you've grown, evolved, not just as a learner, but really as a writer, as in terms of your ideas and your worldview and the mindset that you bring to that space.
I think I wouldn't change the order of the journey, if that makes sense. Like, I'm
Yes.
so glad that I arrived into my creativity at a slightly older age. Most
Mm,
people go straight into study
mm,
directly after high school. But I think as a writer, because we write from our own like personal experiences a lot. And I was already about 10 years older than most of my peers. So being like the older person in the class, even though I was still in my 20s, I thought that
mm,
was bizarre. But but because I had a bit more life experience on them, with whatever traveling I'd done at the time, um, yeah, just experiencing different levels of life. Whereas they all
mm.
came out of high school, were writing stuff about love, and I was like, "You're only 18, like do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?"
yeah.
Yeah, and I had no experience
Absolutely.
as a writer. Like I just knew that it was always part of me, but it was not something that I really activated until I was older.
Mm.
Yeah.
Are you content with where you are at this point of your life journey, just in terms of the different areas of your life, like whether it's the professional, whether it's your family, are you happy at where you're at? You obviously you've got Satiu Studios. We'll talk about that soon. Just in terms of the creative space, how are you feeling about that at this point of your life?
That's a yeah, it's a tricky question.
Mm,
There are two ways that I think about it. One of them
mm,
is a lot of my creativity really started for me professionally in Auckland. So in between, being born and raised in Purido and now living here in Sydney,
mm,
a big part of where my creative stuff really began for me was in Auckland. Auckland, they turn around a lot of Pasifika content on all platforms, right?
mm,
Um, but I didn't really get an opportunity to spend a lot of time in that space. I mean, I was only there for a couple of years before I moved here, and I always had this feeling in the back of my mind: if I was still living in Auckland, like would I have Satu Studios today, or
mm,
would I be more than? Because at the time there, all my focus was really just writing, whereas the focus here in Australia, because there's this lack of Pacific storytelling, it's kind
mm,
of forced me to step into other roles. Hence why I, don't only write for screen and stage. I wrote a
mm,
book. I opened a company. I started producing stuff because now I'm starting to exercise different things
mm.
to help create the works. Whereas back home, it was already there for me, and it was much easier to do than it is now.
Have you met other folks there in Sydney or other parts of Australia that are from Auckland who were also part of performing arts, or not so much where you're based right now?
I've met a lot of people here
Mm,
who are definitely from the New Zealand scene. Most of them have probably moved when they were much younger.
mm,
So they've been in Australia much longer than they were in New Zealand. There are a few creatives, maybe not necessarily what I do, but
mm.
people in the art space. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask about Black Friars Theatre Company. Is that was that something that you were doing in Auckland? I mean, are you still part of the company currently, or you still collab and work with them, or do writing with the company? Yeah.
So the Black Friars, they were actually formed in 2006. So they've been
Mm,
around for almost 20 years.
mm,
I actually came on board in 2016.
mm.
I was part of this show, Macbeth.
Ah,
They were occupying a lot of the space at MIT, the performance arts space, and there was a call out. You know, a lot of the work that they've done in the past has been by the collective only, but they did
mm,
a public call out, and I was like, oh my gosh, I've been watching them for years. I've really looked up to them for a long time, and so um, yeah, when there was a public call out, I auditioned for one of their shows. I remember failing at it really badly because I think I was just too overwhelmed, but
mm,
they still let me be part of it. And then I came on board again the following year through their Southside Rise sort of movement,
mm,
and then I became an official part of their team. The last thing I've done with them actually was in 2019.
mm,
So they the Southside Rise movement that I'm speaking to was a 3-year project. It was
mm,
working with Pasifika students across all of South Auckland from different high schools. I was very lucky to be in the kind of mentor space, working
mm,
with a lot of youth, but also writing with them as well. Writing, you know, a bit of their show, working with other members of their team to develop a theatre show that we put on display for the community. Yeah.
mm. For anyone who's listening via the podcast platforms or watching via YouTube, click the links in the bio. There'll be links in there for the Black Friars Theatre Company, but also all the work that we're going to be discussing that Gabriel is doing, that Satiu Studios is putting out their projects. So, support if you can, or get on board in some type of way, fam. You will not regret it. Um, yeah, okay. So Black Friars, cool, cool. Satil Studios, you are the founder, creative director. It's an independent production company. One of the, as I mentioned, one of the few Pasifika-led organizations in Australia that is dedicated just to amplifying the voices and, telling Pasifika stories, screen, stage, online, and print. Our people telling our stories, super, super important. We are putting the narrative out there, not other people, not us telling it to someone and they're putting it out there.
Mm.
So Satil Studios, what is your origin story with that? Mm.
Oh, I haven't thought about that in a long time. So, Sachi Studios, we just turned 3 last week. I just
Oh,
remembered. So
congratulations,
thank you.
congratulations.
When I say we, I mean just me.
I was gonna
um,
say, who's the team? Shout out the team. Okay, it's
Shout
just
out the
Gabriel.
team, but really it's just me. No, I
Uh,
work closely with Aotearoa New who is she's one of the co-directors of the Pasifika Film Festival. She
Ooh.
also produces a lot of my work, and so shout out to her. She's in Samoa currently, where she lives and works for the United Nations because she's bougie and fancy like that.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, but she no, she really produces a lot of my work, but Sachi Studios was something that I had envisioned a very, very long time ago. Like,
Mm,
I always wanted to own my production company, but it's something that came out of the pandemic stuff. You know, just kind of sitting around at home. I was like, what can I do? What can I do? Like, I had been in Australia for a little over a year, and I was
mm,
frustrated with just the art scenes in general. I was like, no one really understands me as a Pacific person. And if I was hired as a Pacific person, it was to be that token
Mm.
box tick sort of thing. And I go, I need to do something where it's changing how Pacific storytelling's being told. And a lot of that is actually uplifting people, giving them the skills and the tools behind the scene so that the
Mm.
story is told a lot more authentically, all of that sort of stuff. And but I also wanted to create a legacy around my family name. You know, all my siblings have children. I'm the only one that doesn't, and I feel like any works that I will create through this company, essentially my children, my babies, my legacies that I put everything into. So
Mm.
when I'm ready to, you know, put it out there in the world, it's sort of like that, like with your children, you're passing on all this knowledge to them, and then they're out there doing their own thing. Yeah.
Mm. That's beautiful. You mentioned, 1, 2 member team. You've got your friend who produces a lot of your work. Do you hope to um, bring a few people on, if possible, in the next year, few years or so?
100%. That's the goal.
Mm.
Like I would love to actually operate out of my own space because everyone goes, "Oh my gosh, you own a studio," and I was like, "No, you're actually just looking at the studio.
Yeah.
I'm very I mostly work from home, but you know, when I do get the funds to make works, then I can recruit people. So at that stage,
Mm.
it's like recruiting people to then um, help me do because I can't do it all.
Mm.
I can write, I can direct ish.
Mm.
Um, yeah, but I can't do it all, and I always need the help. So when I'm given the money to do that, then
Mm.
it's recruiting people. But it would be nice, and this is me kind of manifesting, speaking all those things into existence.
Yes.
That yeah, it would be so great to have my own space, to have money, like a sort of regular income when I can actually pay people. Um,
Mm.
consistently. They can work for me full time, and we can just keep pumping out and making stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, in Australia, where you are, is it easy? I don't know if easy is the word. Are there funds and grants available for, uh, you know, p- creatives like yourself? Like, I think about the situation, in New Zealand,
Mm.
and how people apply for funding for projects and everything from music videos to putting an exhibition and stuff like that. But, you know, Pasifika folks there in Australia, do you have access to something like that? Or is it a lot of like crowdfunding kind of thing?
I think it's a combination of both.
Mm.
I don't mind crowdfunding, but I
Mm.
think for me, it's a last resort thing.
Mm.
It's sort of like it's something that we avoid doing, but we have to sometimes.
Mm.
Depending on the funds that are available. So in terms of funding that is available, it's super competitive here.
Ah.
And I understand because, you know, it's much bigger than New Zealand. Um, but the funding that's there, especially as a, you know, diverse person, you know, because we are a minority group and stuff like that, there's limited fundings for the minority groups. But there's within those minority groups, there's no funding that's specific to Pacific people. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah.
Yeah. And so we're actually competing against other minority groups, which is actually like the vast majority of who's actually applying. And
Mm.
so you wonder why Australia in general, I'm probably going to say this bluntly, but I don't care. But
Mm.
I wonder why like the same big names across Australia are getting the funding all the time, because I feel like there's less of them to apply
Mm.
against, whereas there's a lot more minority groups, and then there's like that.
Mm.
So half the time we can get small grants here and there, but they're not ones that are necessarily sustainable.
Man. Yeah,
Yeah.
for someone who is listening or watching and they're wanting to take a similar path, like start a production company, what were some of the real like basics 101 that you had to kind of go through a checklist and go, okay, I've done this, I've done this in order to actually get started? And what I mean is the whole like paperwork and like the name, obviously you probably had, copyright, that trademark. Did you have to do, I mean, and then being on your own and having to do that, what were some of those really important basic 101s that you had to like get right from the start?
Yeah, I think you've already mentioned it. It was trademarking the name, getting
Mm,
all that copyright sorted, registering the company like as an actual
mm,
business. So giving it like an ABN, which is a Australian business number.
right.
So you're registering it towards like a tax thing.
Mm,
Yeah.
mm,
I think I'm lucky in the sense I shouldn't say I'm lucky. As a business I haven't earned enough to like claim tax back, do all that stuff through the business.
mm,
Um but I feel like it'll happen very soon.
mm.
Yeah.
Since we're talking, I want to talk about the book and you as an author, published author. But since we're talking about Satiu Studios, I want to just get into, you directed Untitled. This was in 2020, A Life in the Day of, and you had a multidisciplinary Samoan cast and crew from the greater western suburbs of Sydney. This was conceptualized in 2019 and set in a shopfront reception like space for Pasifika artists to confront issues that they encounter daily. And then it was filmed in January of 2020. So uh, can you speak a little bit to Untitled and yeah.
Yeah, I can. It was actually inspired by one of my good friends, Sāmoan actor Lawrence Ola, who's
Mm,
actually featured in the film. Um, we had a discussion, and I think we were both like frustrated with the system. He was doing a lot of s- um, the things that he was auditioning for were there are things that are stereotypically expected of someone, of a Samoan heritage, that is a slightly larger build sort of thing.
mm,
Um, and he always said that he was always the comedic guy, and that he wanted to do something a bit more serious. Um, I remember just sitting around going, I want to make something, but and a lot of people had said to me, it's really hard to find Pacific creatives, but I was determined to prove them wrong and say I'm going to make something with an entire cast of all Samoan people, however shape or form they come. Um, so I reached out to a few friends that I'd made at the time, and then they also helped me reach out to other creatives,
mm,
and then having someone like Eliora on board who um, helped me find crew members to help, film the works, get up all the lighting, all of that stuff, and we managed to turn it around in like 4 to 6 weeks, like something
mm,
really crazy. And then I said, let's film it by January, and we did. Um, it was really great. We did it across 2 days. So the first day, I just facilitated like a workshop where we
mm,
brought in all the creatives. They all were from different parts of Western Sydney. They all shared and expressed their frustrations just with the system in general. Um, which is why it's called A Life in the Day of, because
mm,
um, what it means to be a brown Pasifika person in the art space. And so essentially what they did in that first day was um, I gave them like a monologue example of what I wanted from them. And then they went away and wrote something themselves based on their experience. And then the next day it was filmed. So yeah, we did it really fast.
mm,
But I got some really good stuff out of it. We had Rosita Vey, I don't know if you know her,
mm,
who won New
mm,
Zealand title. She was the only female winner and the first Samoan winner. I think it was in 2004 or 5. I can't quite remember. So people like her, we had Lani Tupu, who was the first Samoan graduate of Toi Whakari back in the 80s. And, he had been here for years, and he goes, I've never been in a space of all Pacific people. Or he has, but not here in Australia. And he was 61 at the time.
Wow.
Just so bizarre to hear. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you kind of describe the emotion or the feeling in the short time that you were all together, being multidisciplinary artists, being Samoan? What was that like in terms of when we think of our values like fa'aloalo, tautua, those things kind of stick out, right? And everything that we do. So when you're in a space like that where you're just surrounded by people that look, sound like you, but bring so much enriching experiences to the space, how does that differ from the other places that you've been a part of? Like, did you finally feel like, oh, this is what we could be, this is what we can build from?
Yeah. No, I think you've answered it. Like it was, I had been here for a year, and it was the first time I was like, we can do this. Like, this can be our everyday life. All those things, like you mentioned, that are so rich in our culture. I was like, those things can actually translate to how we work and operate on a daily basis. I was like, I shouldn't have to water myself down to, to be confined to this, like the way that we work. I was like, I shouldn't have to change my values. And the way I operate generally is like a lot more circular. Lateral leadership is so important to me. So I'm always consulting with people all the time. And people go, I've never worked with a director where it's like you're actually taking into consideration other people's opinions and stuff. And I go, because it's all of our work. It's not just mine. Like I want everyone to be proud. I want everyone to be considered when we're making those sorts of decisions. Yeah.
It's so beautiful to hear, Gabriel. It really is. On YouTube, on the synopsis, like I was looking at the stuff that you have on the YouTube channel, and this is the name of our experimental film, Untitled, was temporary, but it stuck. During post-production, we were reminded of the ranking within the whaamatai, the Samoan governance system. The village is made up of the vast majority, the entitled men and women who don't get a say or make decisions. Untitled is our way of reclaiming Pasifika voices within our own communities and across Australia. We will no longer be silent and tribute this work to the Pasifika arts community in Australia.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
Thank you. It's so hard to speak to that, but as you were saying that, I was also reminded that all the creatives, I mean, they were all wonderful before. They were all doing it there. They were all excelling in their own spaces. But since then, a lot of them have started collaborating. A lot of them are pushing, the Pasifika voice and space. And so it's so refreshing to see. Yeah. I think they all just needed that little push, like that little reminder. Because it's so easy to get lost in it's so easy to get lost here in Australia. Yeah.
Well, I think what you have done, or what that project Untitled did, is really planted some very important seeds. And so now you're seeing, people are flourishing, and they're going out there and they're continuing that work, doing the collaboration, networking, connecting, and still amplifying our narratives and putting our stories out there. So that is what's powerful about building community and uplifting. You mentioned earlier, uplifting one another, and I talk about this all the time. Like I was this whole time I'm sitting here chatting to you, and I'm thinking, how did I come across your page? But when I've looked at Satiu Studios and then I looked you up Oh, you know what it was? Because I'm always looking for Pasifika authors, and your name popped up somewhere, and I was like, hey, I've never heard of this book. Wait, who is this person? Did some research on you. I was like, what? I mean, I'm all about that, man. I'm so about we should create space and uplift, give flowers. Like, don't be that guy hating from the side. It's important to give folks their flowers and to acknowledge what people are doing out there, the grind and whatnot. Like, it doesn't hurt you to just, acknowledge and lift someone else up, and plant those seeds and share ideas. That doesn't hurt you one bit. So I was super eager and excited, really eager to get you on the show to share your story. I did all this research on you, and I was just like, nah, we need to tell the story. And I say this all the time on here: is every artist, creative, author, teacher, Feife'au, all these amazing folks that have come on the show, really humble folks, they're just out there doing the things they love, but these stories are not being championed. So it's been such an honor, and now to have you here as part of the Rita Rosa family now,
Thank
it's
you.
so cool because this work, these community spaces that people like yourselves are creating, we need to hear about that. And it's just, if we're not telling our stories, then who is? That's how I
Yeah.
feel.
Oh my gosh, that spiel was amazing. It's so hard because I'm all about the creative process, and I don't actually like to put myself out there. I'm just like, once it's out there, I'm just like, it'll do its thing. I just want to move on to the next thing and just keep creating. But the funny thing with Untitled, now thinking about it, so we made this in 2020, but it was only released last year. Like, we did a public launch where the film was projected onto a Pacific store.
Ooh.
So it was what am I saying? It was projected onto the roof of a store. So for 2 nights in May last year, in St. Mary's, which is a very Pacific suburb here in Western Sydney, we could watch it for about 3 hours. It was just on repeat. Yeah, so people drive past and be like, what the hell is this? I can hear all these voices. I can see all these brown people. And the turnout was great across both nights that we had it out. Then we did a slightly different version where it was made for the screen. And that was screened at the Pasifika Film Festival last year in November. And it's currently now doing the film festival route. So it's traveling, it's traveling around the world. Hasn't picked up any awards yet, but if it does, I'm sure it would. It better.
Man, I have to say, Gabriel, you just mentioned, you like to do things and just put it out there, then you carry on. But you need to just put the brakes on and stop and really, really take it in and be super proud. Be super proud. And just the fact that it's doing the circuit in terms of like the film festivals and things like that. Oh my goodness, you better stop right now and just take that in and be super proud. And like that, you deserve your flowers. The people that have come together to make this project happen. Oh my gosh, shout out to all of you, no matter how small a part that you played, or even if you're behind the scenes. I mean, that's what we're talking about, right? Building communities. So don't you dare put your head down and continue on to the next project. You better put your brakes on and stop right there and just,
Thank you. No, I've definitely done that. I do it in my
Mm.
sort of own way. But for me, it's always about the people, the rest of the team.
Mm.
Yeah.
I love
It's
that.
never about me. Yeah.
That's
I
cool.
just hate it. I hate making it about me. Something.
Well, every now and then you can make it about you.
Oh,
I want to talk about the Kokos, which is an 8-part digital series for the Pasifika Education Centre for children, teaching them the basics of Samoan language. How did you get that project? How did you connect and get involved in that project?
yes. So I was already living here in Sydney. The
Mm.
Pasifika Education Centre, they're actually Auckland based. But when I was living there, like, I don't speak fluent Samoan. I can understand it really well.
Mm-hmm.
I've always kind of spoken the basics, but I took language classes through them. They knew that I was a writer at the time or studying it and pursuing it. But when I moved here, um, the person that produced the works, she still reached out to me. She goes, "Oh, you can write anywhere. It doesn't matter where in the world you are. But we wanted you specifically because, you are, a product of our center. We know that you're a writer, but we also want to give you the work, to kind of a way to give back." And I loved writing this series. I wrote it in 2 days. I had a very short turnaround, but they gave me a guide. Each of the episodes have to cater to, oh, these are the certain words that I had to speak to, and I just had to make it really fun. I did write for a show called What Now in New Zealand, which is a kids show there anyway. So I had a bit of experience writing a kids show, but that was working with other people. This was the first time that I got to do like a digital series, but also something that I could write that was 100% my own writing. Yeah. Have you seen it?
No, I have
Yeah.
not seen it, but I'm gonna
Yeah.
link it in the bio, fam. After this, I'm gonna go and see it.
Please
I'm gonna go
do.
check it out, and then for
Please do.
anyone who's watching, click on
Yeah.
the link.
Yeah. No, please do. It's it's so funny. I think my favorite episode was writing the Christmas jingle. Yeah. Yeah, but you'll know why when you watch it.
Okay, I'm gonna
Yeah.
check it
But it's so
out.
funny because I had to write rap song, it was so funny.
That sounds
Um,
fun.
and then I'm just kind of in my own creative space, just singing it out loud to myself, and I was like, "No, that doesn't work. Gotta try something else." So there was a lot of that too.
That's
Yeah.
really cool. I mean, what are some other projects that you've worked on? Because you said you did What Now, the children's program in New Zealand. What are some other things like that that you've done outside of script writing and screenplay and things like that?
Well, the book
Oh, and the book
was
we're
one.
getting to the book. We getting
I
to
will
the
get
book.
into the book. So the book
Yeah.
was one, but we'll get
Mm,
to that.
mm.
Gosh, what else have I done? I've done a bit of blogging.
Oh, yes,
I did that
yes.
through the Pasifika Film Festival, and that
Mm,
was also highlighting other Pacific filmmakers.
mm,
I interviewed them, um, and I just wanted to highlight other Pacific people. I've
mm,
That's always what I want to do and am doing, I guess.
mm.
Yeah.
Before we get to the book, can you talk about the Pasifika Film Festival? Yeah, like there in Australia, where? Yeah, is it in Australia the Pasifika Film Festival or?
Yes and no. I'm probably not the best person to describe it, but I'm happy to speak to what I
Mm,
know. So
okay.
I think it was formed in I want to say 2013 or
Mm,
14. It was the Pasifika Film and Arts Cultural Festival.
mm,
Um, and it was founded by Gabriel Faatau'uu, who's actually based in Papua New Guinea right now. Um,
mm,
but she founded it because she recognized that there just wasn't a space for, like a hub for Pacific films.
mm,
And so she created the platform. It was running every year. I think since 2018, they made
mm,
that decision to run every second year. So it ran in 2020. I was lucky to be a part of their marketing, kind of social media, blogging team.
mm.
But I also did Breaking Bread through that. It was screened. It was screened
Yes.
through that festival, but it was all digital at the time. And
Mm,
then last year in 2022, they had their kind of first in-person festival since
mm,
2018. But the festival isn't only based here in Australia. Um, they have run smaller versions around different parts of the world. So they did a screening. They've done several screenings in Auckland.
mm,
They've taken screenings to the region, so different parts of the islands. Um, I think in 2018 they did something in Salt Lake City, so in Utah as well.
oh,
Yeah, they collaborated there with one of the companies whose name I've forgotten. I'm so sorry, but
that's okay.
um they ran workshops and they did like a 48 hours sort of film challenge type thing to kind of,
Cool.
yeah.
Nice. Yeah, thank you for that. I did miss that on my notes, but it kept coming up, and I was like, oh, I need to ask what you know. But Breaking Bread series before I forget. anthology series which weaves traditional Pasifika forms of storytelling with contemporary screen arts and storytelling. Tell us about Breaking Bread series.
So Breaking Bread, I wrote this as part of my master's project. So my master's was looking at combining traditional modes of story and what that looked like in a kind of Western screen context. Um, for the project, I wrote 3 films, like 3 sort of short films that created sort of one sort of anthology. But then I had an opportunity here in Sydney to rewrite those 3 episodes, and I actually ended up writing 8. I wrote 8
Wow.
full, yeah, I wrote 8 full episodes about each of them honed into a different food, a different Pasifika food, a different form of like story. So the first one being whanonga, which is traditionally like a performance sort of story. And each of the stories then honed into a different familial relationship. So that the very first one honed into the relationship between the grandmother and granddaughter. And then throughout the series, we've got like father and son, mother and daughter, husband and wife, yeah, looking at different sort of relationships, different foods again, and also different things that are taboo in Pacific culture. But my aim essentially was to write something that was kind of taboo, but making it palatable for our audience. Because I think we as Pacific people, often we just brush things under the carpet all the time. And I wanted us to start having those sort of conversations around about normalizing some of the things that we kind of disregard. Because I think it impacts us like mental health wise, but also on so many other things too. Yeah.
I was wondering, for those of us who are not in Australia, where would one go to? Can people listening or watching, can they watch or go somewhere to see the anthology series Breaking Bread or Untitled? Like, is it available online somewhere? Is it possible or?
Yes, so with Breaking Bread, I've only actually filmed the very first ep. I filmed like a proof of concept, that which also did the film festival circuit. It's actually online, so you can
Okay,
watch it on my YouTube channel. If you
cool.
just search Satiu Studios, it's there.
It'll be in
Um,
the link in bio, fam. YouTube studio. Check it out. YouTube
so
Satiu
it's
Studios.
it's there. Through the Pacific Noir program, where I developed the full 8 series. Um, I had some difficulty around that, Um, so Breaking Bread was screened by the Pasifika Film Festival in 2020, and I actually released it publicly online in early 2021. Um, and it was released 2 days before my father had passed, and so, um, it was out there in the world. I was dealing with all the grief stuff and my dad's things in the background, and then I wanted to return to the full 8 series because I then had an opportunity to pitch it to Stan and SBS. So if you don't know what those are, Stan and SBS are sort of the equivalent of like a Australian Netflix. So I
Oh,
pitched it to them, got some really, really good feedback. Um, and then when I wanted to revisit the development of those works again, my grandmother had passed, my maternal grandmother. So it was like, yeah, it just kept being tied back to all these different passings. And these are people who actually help influence the work, like where some of the stories come from in that. But I'm in a much better place now where I'm develop where I'm now developing it again, taking into consideration that feedback I got from Stan and SBS. I'm not sure which of the 2 routes that I'm going just yet. I'm also contemplating if it's a series that I should be writing or if I should take all the ideas from those 8 eps and actually rewrite it as a feature film. Yeah.
oh,
Yeah, but it's definitely gonna be one of the 2. It's
okay.
always in the back of my mind. It is still, like, turning very slowly, but I feel like it'll happen when it's meant to. Yeah. But
I'm
I'm still very
excited.
grateful. Yeah, but I'm very grateful for that sort of pilot experience.
Mm,
I don't know if you've seen it, but it's a big cast. There are 17 people on screen. Yeah.
I'm
And they all,
excited to see where
people,
this goes.
people have always told me like 17 people. That's a lot of cast members. But I go, but we specific people have large families, and I go, my
Mm,
mum comes from a family of 17. Like my grandmother who passed, she had 17 children, and that's why I wrote 17 characters in that app to kind of honor, all the different children that she had, because that grandmother figure is very much about her, being the matriarch, all
mm,
those things. Yeah.
that's That's really cool. I wanted to talk about your book, your journey as an author. You're a published author. Where I'm from.
Mm.
Tell us about this. To purchase the book, there's a website. Check the bio. Check the links in the bio, fam. Get on board and support. So tell us, Gabriel. Tell us about your book.
So the book Where I'm From, I wrote this again in 2019. So I wrote this a long time ago. I feel like I hold on to stuff for so long because I mentioned that I'm really attached to the creative process.
Mm,
And so once it's out there, it's like it's no longer mine. Like it's already out there for the world. But it was only launched late last year. The
mm,
book Where I'm From was actually inspired by my nephew, or all my nieces and nephews. But there was one particular incident I had with my nephew who was, I think he was 6 at the time, and he was asked to write something about one of the books that he had brought home from his school library. And I just remember seeing this look on his face, like he really struggled to identify with these characters. But he said it to me in his own way. It was like, all these people are white, like I don't look like them. I don't know how to, like, he didn't know
mm,
how to connect with them. And that actually really made me sad. And I was so determined to write a book for him just from that, interaction. So
mm.
I just went away into my space and I ended up writing 4 books, which is crazy. Yeah,
Okay.
so I've kind of got 3 in the background, but this one book, yeah, it took me a long time to find the right like publisher and
Mm,
stuff like that. There was one that I was really attached to, but then there were issues around the illustration, just because it was important for me, again, with story sovereignty, wanting more Pacific people who understood
mm,
like the context of the story. I really wanted um, someone who at least came from a Pacific background, didn't necessarily have to be Samoan.
mm,
So I fought really hard to find one. They weren't happy, so I kind of left them, went to somebody else. There were so many delays, but I eventually found a publisher who um, believed in my vision, was able to find, they said that they had a illustrator who was of like a Fijian Indian background. Not the same thing, right? But
mm,
I feel like it's definitely something that but it was the closest that I could find at the time, and I wanted to find one that was Australian based. Like it's so easy for me to go to New Zealand and find
mm,
somebody, but I was like, no, I'm here in Australia. I should be amplifying the Pacific voices that are here,
mm,
whether you're a Pacific person who's been here your whole life or someone like me who's kind of moved here at a much later time. I still wanted to amplify the Pacific Australian voice here,
mm,
and so I was able to find somebody, and now the book's out. It's been launched. It's mostly only available online,
mm.
through websites like Amazon, directly
Yeah.
from my publisher. I also have my own website linked to it as well.
Yeah.
Um, it's only available in soft cover and an ebook currently. We're
Mm,
working on a hardcover issue, depending on how well it does. But we are also looking at putting it in that stores that Pacific people generally go to, stores like Kmart or
mm.
an Aldi, because I know Aldi randomly sells stuff outside of kind of selling supermarket sort of stuff. Yeah, a
That,
Target store, because I feel like those are places that our people go to.
I mean, you did mention you've got the other books. Are you going to put more out there aside from what you've already got and written?
Um, it's not. Um, I mean, it was never part of my plan,
Mm,
because I always just wanted to write for screen and stage. But now that I've done it, I've seen a lot of the reactions that I gotten from the community because I've sent it to all these schools and stuff. People message me, they share it randomly. It's so nice to see.
mm.
Um, um, I think I'll definitely make it part of the wider Satiu Studios thing. Like it would be cool to be, a studio that produces screen and stage works, but also become like a publishing house. I don't know.
Oh,
Yeah.
that's so dope. Do you connect with other Pasifika writers? Like, have you been able to connect with other Pasifika writers? Not
Yes.
just in Australia, but abroad. Like,
Yeah, both. Yeah. It's
mm,
crazy. I met someone in I forgot which part of the US. Lots of local artists here who have written children's books,
mm,
who are yeah. So we're all really good at sharing each other's stuff too. And
mm,
they're always encouraging me. They're like, "Come on, Gabriel, you need to like really put yourself out there," because they all know what I'm like. I'm a little bit shy. I'm
mm.
always just about the creative process. But they're like, "No, you need to put it out there like more." And they're like, "You're doing great stuff." Oh my gosh, but yeah.
So you've heard it. There'll be links in the bio where you can purchase the book. I will also put the link to Gabriel's website where you can access the book from there as well. We got to support our Pasifika authors, fam.
Yes.
We're everywhere, but in terms of like exposure and getting people to see the writing and the books that are being published, we need to do things like this. Put it on blast, share it. If you can't buy the book, connect with Satiu Studios online. I have all the social media information in the bio. Connect with Gabriel. You can even sharing his work, his book via your story or a tweet, or if Facebook is your thing, even just sharing it through there goes a long way, fam. I go on and on about this all the time. It goes a long way, even if you
It does
cannot
go a long
afford
way.
to buy the book. But I tell you, got nothing to lose, man.
The
Seriously.
people that I work with or mentor, I'm like, it doesn't cost to share.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like,
Absolutely.
just share it. All you got to do is share it.
Yeah,
Even if it just reaches that one person, that's one person more that's gonna, yeah.
absolutely. So, so, so important. Again, it goes back to, let's uplift one another and just, there's space for everyone to be able to share and, um, yeah. So, in May you were part of the Sydney Writers Festival.
Oh,
Like,
this year, yes. Oh my
yeah,
gosh.
yeah. I mean, sorry, I had to. We had to. I was like, we are not going to close this off without talking about this. But
Yeah,
Sydney Writers Festival, May 2023. Congrats on that.
thank
Um,
you.
w- was this the first time that you attended the Writers Festival, or have you done it in the past?
No, this was my first time.
Oh,
I was
excellent.
so
Okay.
happy because when I was asked to be part of this event, I was like, "Yay! I finally arrived." I've been in the country for over 4 years now,
Mm.
and I was like, "Yay! Someone finally sees me as a writer." Like I'm not, yeah,
How was it though? How were you nervous and all of that? And
all
did
of
it go
that.
well?
I think it did go well. I actually
Mm.
had tonsillitis like while I was
Oh.
attending. It was so vigorous. No, it was quite bad,
Mm.
but you know, um, they told us what our call time was. I arrived like literally 2 minutes before that. So I was only there to like get mic'd up,
Yeah.
share what I needed to, mingle with people, and then go. Like it was a very fast turnover for me. I wish
Mm.
I could have spent a bit more time, but I was just so unwell. Yeah,
Mm.
yeah.
Well,
I
congrats.
think I think I was working from home that day. And someone asked me, they're like, "Why are you going all the way in just for this writers' festival thing?"
Mm.
And I go, "I am one of two Pasifika people in the entire festival." I
Mm.
was like, "I am not turning this down." I was like, "You have to, I don't know, lock me away. You have to
Yeah.
like chain me up to not be there." I was like, "Nope, this is." Yeah, I was like, "I have to do it."
But
Yeah,
it's huge. Hello, it's the Sydney Writers Festival.
I
Like,
know.
wow, that is amazing.
Yeah.
That is really, really cool. What an awesome platform to be able to get on that. And then who was the other author, the other Pasifika author that was there?
Winnie Dunn, but she wasn't in my
Oh,
event.
yeah.
She was part of something else. Yeah.
Shout out to Winnie. She's been a guest on the show, actually.
Oh, really? No, Winnie's
I've had
great.
it. She's so cool. I've had her on here and, talked about sweatshop and stuff. And
Cool.
Sydney Writers Festival, that's what's up. We're going places.
I was like,
Yay.
we are going places. I was like, yeah. But I remember sharing the event and being like, come on, Sydney Writers Festival. I was like, really? You're only putting 2 Pacific people? I go, there's lots of
Man.
us. I was like, I go, what did I write? It was something like, I hope in the near future that there is a panel dedicated to just Pasifika storytelling, whatever shape or form that comes in. Yeah. Because I think with the Sydney Writers Festival, everyone's like, it has to be books only. But I was like, writing for screen, writing for stage, writing blogs, all of that still comes under the writing umbrella. And so, yeah, I just hope Sydney Writers Festival, if you're listening, I really hope that there are more panels that are dedicated to Pacific storytelling. And then from there, yeah.
There we go. You heard that. I know someone from the Sydney Writers Festival is listening. You heard that. We're manifesting. We're putting it out there into the world.
Yeah.
How do you, in terms of health and well-being, you've mentioned several times, I did this, I was sick, I did this. I imagine you wear many hats, but then you're also very busy. How do you take care of your health and well-being?
I don't.
Oh my goodness, Gabriel, uppercut yourself, please.
It's terrible. Everyone's like, because I work full time too. Yeah, on top of trying to create, and yeah. I was like, I'm so bad. I was like, any spare time that I have outside of my 9 to 5 is dedicated towards my creativity. But then my 9 to 5, which I still absolutely love, is still in the creative sector too.
Right.
Yeah.
Gabriel's family and friends, please look after Gabriel. He is a rare gem out there. Please look after yourself, man. Like, you're doing all this, building community and, like highlighting others and the work that they do. But first and foremost, you got to look out for number one first. Otherwise, you're going to be absolutely no use to all the people that love you and all that stuff. Just saying.
Yeah. I think I'm getting better. Yeah. Hopefully. Minus all the sicknesses I've talked about in this interview. My God.
Well, I hope you do better. And again, like many of our creatives that we've had on here, artists, like it's hard, everyone's just doing their thing and really trying to, find their feet, find their place, get their work out there. So I get it, right? So, but still, please take care. Do you have a book recommendation or recommendations for us today?
I do actually. I've got 2. The first one is, I've got them both with me. The first one is, I don't know if you can read that. It's King, King. This is by Aotearoa. I love this book so much. So he's a Tongan, I want to say musician, rapper, really one of the OGs of hip hop here in Australia. But the book's so great because it really goes into, his life as a Tongan person first. He also speaks to, there's something really great because I think he was like a promising rugby player, but he decided to choose art, the music route instead. Because I always feel like as Pacific people, we're always kind of pigeonholed into kind of the sports thing. But I was like, we're art people too. And, I spoke to that around, me growing up, doing lots of stuff in the White Sunday space, performing at family events, that sort of thing. Yeah. And then how he kind of navigated the Australian hip hop scene. Yeah, the book's really cool for that reason. And my other book that I wanted to recommend, speaking of White Sunday, is the actual book called White Sunday.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't know if you've come across this in your thing, but it's written by Litia Fuata, who is Sāmoan, who's based here in Sydney. Sorry, she's not based here in Sydney. She's based here in Australia, I should say.
Mm.
But this book is a children's book. That's why I wanted to recommend it. Um, but I love it. It's I don't know. I don't want to share it without like spoiling it. But if
Right.
you can get to any of those two books, they are on sale. I'll send those links to you so you can kind of link them below as well.
Excellent. Yes, thank you for doing that. And I actually featured your first book. I featured that on my account as a Bookstagram account. So
Yeah,
I try and put book stuff on there aside from the podcast. So yeah, I need to get me a copy, but I featured it on there. I came across it, I can't even randomly, when I'm always like every few weeks looking, searching Pasifika writers, authors, any upcoming stuff like that. And I came across that book, which has been around for a while. But then thank you for the recommendation for the children's picture book, because we also have I have a lot of people who have Bookstagram accounts, and they Pasifika, and they are always looking for uh children's books written by our people. So
yeah.
that's definitely one for the
There was another
Rex.
book that I don't have with me because I gave it
Mm.
to my niece, but the book is called I Am Lupe.
Oh yes,
Come
shout
across
out
that
to
book?
Silla.
To Stella. Oh my
She's
god.
been on the show as well.
Oh great. That
I
makes me
got
so
mad love for
happy.
my people, man. Yeah, shout
Oh
out to
wow.
Silla Atiola.
Oh, Stella's so great. But
Mm.
yeah.
As we begin to wrap up the show today, what are some current projects or future projects that you've got that you're working on right now?
Cool. So I'm working on a few things. I think people have they constantly ask me, they're like, "Oh, Gabriel, you haven't put anything out there," but I go,
Mm.
just because I'm not putting stuff on socials, which I absolutely hate doing,
Mm.
but just because I'm not like I'm not active on socials, doesn't mean that I'm not doing the work in the background. So I just
Mm.
want people to know that first off. I am doing a couple of things. So earlier this year, as part of Sydney World Pride, I got to film behind the scenes of a show
Mm.
called Club Village. So it was led by two Pasifika creatives,
Mm.
Stella Vai, who's a Tongan movement choreographer, and Queen Kong, who's like a Tongan Samoan drag queen. So they did this
Oh.
amazing show where they curated like performances of different Pasifika POC people, and I
Mm.
was fortunate to film the stuff behind the scenes. So we filmed this documentary. We're just in the kind of post-production editing phase of it. So that's one thing that I'm working on with two other Tongan creatives. So working
Mm.
across like different Pacific diaspora. And then also I'm co-writing a feature film with four other POC writers. Um,
Oh.
I don't know if you know this film called Here Out West. Here Out West was a film based here in Western Sydney. It was written by eight POC Western Sydney writers and filmmakers. It was an anthology film, so it was like watching
Oh.
8 series of short films in one longer feature. Um, the company who co-produced that film, Co-Curious, they're now doing their second wave, so they're writing their second feature, and I'm one of five writers. So we're
Oh.
writing much longer pieces. I'm the only Pacific writer in that space, but I'm very excited right now. We're in our second draft. I think we go into kind of production next year, and then we hope to launch it the following year, 2025, because film takes a long time. Um,
Mm.
as part of the reopening, or not reopening, the opening of the Powerhouse Parramatta Museum,
Mm.
who are one of the big commissioners behind this film and project. Yeah. And then, other than those two things, I'm still, you know, working towards breaking bread. Yeah.
Mm.
But those are the three main things that I'm working on. Oh, and the books that I've written. We'll see what I do with them.
Yes. That's
Yeah.
really exciting. Thank you so much, Gabriel, for sharing that. Like, I love to hear it. But definitely love to see it as well. So, as we wrap up the show, I really just want to say a huge thank you. I know you were a bit nervous and saying, I'm really shy, and that you don't know how you're gonna do during this podcast interview. But I just want to say you have been fantastic. Thank you for being
Thank you.
open to, thank you for being open to sharing your journey. Very important journey. Like I said, I believe I needed to bring you on here to give you your flowers and just for people to know that you're out here. Satiu Studios is here. Satiu Studios is here on the Reason Russell podcast. We've got the founder right here, Gabriel. Like, I just want people to know, how you're building community, how you're amplifying our voices. And I cannot say it enough. Love to see it, love to hear it. So I just want to, say all the best with these upcoming projects, over the next few years. And obviously, I love to read, so even more blessings with the books and what you decide to do with that. Just keep working hard, keep going strong, but don't forget to please look after
Look
yourself.
after myself. Yeah. I knew
So
that was coming.
it was coming. You're like,
Yeah.
I'm like, it's coming. So
Yeah.
much alofa is coming out your way. I'm excited to see Satiu Studios out there. Be happy in all that you do. And I now want to give you an opportunity just to close the show with some final words, important message that you have for everyone.
Sure. Thank you so much for that spiel. I always go, oh, she's so sweet, and she's saying all these nice things. And I'm just sitting here nodding my head because I don't know how to take that, but I need to definitely be better at, taking in this feedback and, like you said, getting all the flowers that I deserve. So thank you. No, that was really humbling. There are probably two things that I want to quickly say. One of them is an old Sāmoan proverb that I hope that I live my life by. It's one that I'm hearing a lot more of today, but it's one that I heard at a very young age, and it's really grounded me. The proverb is "Oleala I le pule o le tautua." For those that don't know what it means, it just means the path to leadership is service. And I hope that through, all my creativity, that I'm, always putting our people first, serving them. Yeah. Which is probably, yeah. I don't know if that's evident through the things that I've spoken about today. But it's always about putting others first, putting culture first, language, all that stuff. And then the last thing I want to say is something that me and a few of my friends kind of speak to, something that I try to pass on to our younger people especially, is knowing the greatness that they come from. When I think of when I think back to the origins of Pacific people who navigated, the largest ocean in the world with the little resources they had back then, imagine all the great things that they could do with the resources that we have today. And so, don't let their sacrifice, all the things that they do, be wasted. Like, we live in this world, we've got all these great things at our disposal. Use them well, use all the talents that were inherited, all those things. So yeah,